Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Passive Income Doctor. Today, we're joined by Daniel Jones, who is a mortgage broker, but also has a very interesting background as a pilot as well. And I guess we'll talk about, there are some parallels between aviation and medicine as well. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you, Dr. Dan. It's really nice to join, and I'm looking forward to this discussion.
Yeah. I always like to start with our guests kind of going all the way back, to childhood where, kind of talking about, maybe there were or maybe there weren't discussions around money, around the dinner table growing up. I'm just wondering what it was like for you and, did it influence you later in life as well?
Yeah, I think my background in growing up did influence where I've landed now. My parents, academics, they grew up in the Gough Whitlam era where university was free. My mother came from a very poor farming family, so education was key. Um, that meant their focus with myself and my sister was education. What I think did was missing potentially was talking about money, talking about budgeting, talking about investing, and that may have influenced me ending up in the financial space to a degree, and seeing that very smart people also need good advice or to think about their financial future.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess, what was your first job like? I'm not sure if it was high school, university, and also, when did you start thinking about investing?
Mm. So first job, besides casual jobs while I was at high school, I went onto seek.com.au looking for a job. I needed a job. I had rent to pay, and I found a advertisement for a customer service officer at a company called Medfin. Originally bought by MLC, then MLC was bought by NAB, and I took up that job. I spent 4 years working there while I completed a Bachelor of Economics. They actually supported me quite well. I was surprised that they would let me, move from full-time work during uni holidays and work 2 or 3 days a week while I was studying full-time. They offered me a full-time role afterwards in several different teams. I moved on to MLC itself, particularly in the financial planning area, and had a few years there. I uh, how do I put this plainly? Working in a big bank is, while there's lots of opportunities, there's politics, and you can have moments of quick progression, moments of slow progression. And I was questioning whether I wanted to continue doing that. Now, I had a side passion, aviation. I had been flying at the New South Wales Central Coast for a number of years and decided to have a career shift into aviation. And it turned out at that point in time, I had uh, the criteria to join Regional Express. So I joined Rex, flew with them for 4 years, I believe, up in North Queensland of Cairns. And during that time, I also had a health event. And so I was diagnosed at 30 with stage one bowel cancer. And I kept, after my surgery, I kept flying for Rex for a period, then progressed to Jetstar. So most pilots want to move on to the jet airlines, and you pick whichever airline is hiring at that point in time. And Jetstar was hiring. Um, yeah, that was tough training after having what was called an ultra low anterior resection. 8 weeks in the UK with terrible greasy food
Mm.
in the area that I was located. Uh, but it was worth it. And I spent another 3 years at Jetstar. Then COVID hit. So that made things tough. We just bought our second investment property in Sydney. My wife had just given birth to our first child, so we had two mortgages, a rent to pay, and no income.
Mm,
That was the point where, while I had time off, as we were stood down, like I think every pilot in Qantas for an extended period of time, I got back into finance. And so I started a mortgage broking business with a couple of other Qantas pilots, and it went quite well. Those two individuals wanted to keep on flying. When we were having our second child, I asked my wife, "Do you want me to?" The business is going quite well. I'm actually enjoying what I'm doing. And with my health issues, I had to fast quite a bit as
mm,
well. That was a decision point. Do I want to keep flying, which I've spent a lot of time and energy, like doctors do, to get to where
yeah, definitely.
they get to? Or do I make a decision to go back into finance and benefits, be home at the weekend if I want to be home in the weekend? Do I want to have control over my income? So I don't want an organization to say you're stood down again in the future. Who knows what can happen in the future? Um, and then having to fast, continually. It became a very easy decision to return to finance and become a mortgage broker. And one of the things I like about it is I'm not working for one bank anymore. I can use whatever bank I so choose to for the client to get the best outcome for them.
Yeah, definitely. There's so much to unpack there, and thank you for sharing. I guess I want to go back. Uh, I think when you said, yeah, lots of training. Yeah, do you want to give us a bit insight into, um, hours and, does everyone make it through pilot school? And also as well, I hear it's very expensive as well to train to be a pilot.
It's there's a lot of time, there's a lot of cost. Generally, to become or to get to the stage to be a commercial pilot, with your ATPL, which is the license that you need to be able to fly a commercial airliner, the total cost is in excess of $100,000.
Well,
The time, there are different avenues. Some people will do the training directly. They'll work at McDonald's, they'll work whatever shifts they can in whatever industry to complete their training and pay for it. Some individuals will go through cadetships where they will still pay about the same amount. It's around 130,000, I believe, the Qantas Academy program that's available in Australia at the moment. So you've got cost, you've got time, and I think what is similar to doctors as it is to pilots is anyone can do it, but you have to want to do it. So if you don't have the drive, if you don't have the passion, then you're set up to fail. If you
yeah,
want to do it, you can do it.
yeah. Okay. Um, and also with the health issues, is it like, was there any other kind of career or business that you were considering at the time as well? It sounds like you just needed somewhere where, as you said, kind of a bit more time for yourself or for family, weekends, and yeah, maybe a bit more control over your hours, it sounds like.
Yeah, I didn't. Well, when COVID hit, I was putting up posters around Artarmon, where we were living in Sydney, to offer tutoring services, virtual tutoring services to children because they weren't going to school. Anything that was, well, good for them, but also earning an income. Um, broke, I didn't think about anything else once I became a broker. And I realized, look, if I invest in this, if I learn, particularly for the medical professionals, because when having worked at Medfin previously, ex-bankers there were coming to me asking me to do their home lending. A lot of bankers, especially from Medfin, will work on the commercial.
Yes.
Reason being, it's not consumer regulated. There's less paperwork. You don't have to do as much. But for home lending, because it is highly regulated, and we've had Royal Commission, we've had several events where regulations become tighter. And in the last, I think it was 4 years ago, we've had best interest duty come in where we have to do the best thing for the client. I was already doing that, and my team was, you know, can, operating under best interest duty. Before that, it's really funny. The Under responsible lending, the rule was you had to select a product that is not unsuitable for the client, the double negative. So it didn't have to be the best product. Now we have to find the best product. Cost is a major consideration, but it's not the be all and end all, particularly if a client has a complex situation.
Yeah. So I guess best is a little bit subjective as well, right? Like depending on the goals, like say they might refinance to a high interest rate, but then if it allows them to get equity out with a lower tier lender and can grow their portfolio, that could still be argued like best for the client.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, correct. It is the best thing for that individual or for that household, that couple, if their goal is to release equity, and understanding that to do that, it might not be a major bank that can offer the lowest rates. It might be going elsewhere. And yeah, a good broker should be reviewing their clients every 6 months or 12 months. And we've got a process for doing that to see, can we get clients from those third, I call them third tier lenders, to a second tier or a first tier. And second tier, I reference the regional banks, which are really good to consider at times. Sometimes they're cheaper than the first tier lenders as well.
Well, okay. And how was it the journey? Kind of, it sounds like maybe you did mortgage broking a little bit on the side, and then is it you've grown to a larger team now? How's that journey been?
It's been it's been very enjoyable, a big learning experience, and being a having spent close to 8 years in aviation as a pilot, um, I realized I'm one cog in the wheel at Jetstar or Qantas. Yeah, I go to the front of the aircraft, I fly the plane, I get there an hour before takeoff. Um, am I selling tickets to generate revenue? No. Am I involved in the maintenance of the aircraft? No. Am I involved with the IT system? No. Now, my business is not very big. We're quite niche, and uh, but I do have a team of five. It's still finding the right people for the right place to make sure we're operating as efficient as possible and providing the best client experience.
Yeah, that makes sense. And one thing I wanted to finish up on was, I guess, I remember even medical school, them talking about, sometimes there's parallels between aviation and medicine in terms of, high stakes, people's lives. So you could argue pilot even more so, right? You got, hundreds of people's lives. Yeah, can you tell us about any parallels and also, I guess, I know also some doctors are kind of interested in aviation or even pilots themselves, maybe doctors who work regionally or rurally.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And there are lots of parallels. We are people in trust, whether it's a pilot or the doctor or the anaesthetist or the nurse, their lives with us. It's really, it's a privilege, but it comes with a lot of responsibility. And uh, an annual course that all pilots conduct with their airline is a day course called Human Factors, and it's really come about and seen as critical to ensure that the crew resource management is being conducted appropriately in the day-to-day operation. What I mean that by that is, um, 40 years ago, the captain was the boss. They were up high and they were correct, and people would not question the captain. Um, Generalistic, it's changed, and there are lots of incidents in aviation where, I mean, the greatest disaster in aviation was Tenerife with a KLM flight and a Pan Am flight or aircraft, both 747s, where there was fog. They were both trying to depart as quickly as possible because they diverted to Tenerife due to bad weather conditions in Europe. Um, they ended up colliding on the runway.
Mm.
The first officer of KLM was explaining to the captain that an American Airlines aircraft was on the runway and we're going to hit it. And he still let the captain continue. And I think everyone on the KLM flight did not survive, and about half the American Airlines passengers survived. Um, in the human factors course that I was talking about, they have referenced a doctor in the US, Atul Gawande,
Oh, yeah.
who wrote a book called The Checklist Manifesto. And it's fantastic. And so he had his son, who was in surgery, and and his son was fine, but he identified that um, there were no checklists, there was no procedure, process. And my understanding is medicine has moved along, um, similar to aviation, where um, you know it's okay to make mistakes. But it's better to have a speak up environment where everyone in the theatre can talk if they can see something that's going wrong. So the surgeon who might be controlling or the operation still should have everyone else be able to speak up in case he's going to make a mistake. And that's what we've done in aviation as well.
Yeah. Okay. And how come so many doctors are interested in flying or are also pilots or yeah aviation medical assessors and things like that?
I think because doctors and pilots are generally high achievers, and you have an interest in something and you go for it. Um, and with those parallels now having more checklists, more procedures, aviation is like that, whether you're flying for an airline or whether you're flying in a small aircraft that you might own. Several doctor clients of mine own their own aircraft, and they will use it to commute for work. And so it's kind of a fun way to be able to commute. You can be an orthopedic surgeon that travels between Sydney, Port Macquarie, Coffs Harbour, and you can do that in 40 minutes versus 4 hours
Mm.
from getting from one point to another.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. Um, Well, thank you for coming onto the show. I think it's always interesting getting a variety of guests on. As you said, high achievers, it's very hard to get into medicine, very hard to complete pilot training. And I think we're going to do a part two. So listeners, stay tuned for that. Part two, we're going to be talking a bit more about the nitty-gritty of, some lending, debt recycling, and also we're going to talk about some case studies of I guess some of doctors who have been able to build large portfolios versus some common mistakes as well. Um, so until that episode, Daniel, how can people find out more about you?
I've got a website. It's specialistbroking.com.au. I'm on LinkedIn. Daniel Jones, Specialist Broking's on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram. But I would suggest first port of call is going to the website and learning more about my journey, my business.
Perfect. And I'll put the links in the show notes as well. Well, thank you, Daniel, again for coming on to today's show. And to all our listeners, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Passive Income Doctor. See you on the next one.